Yuna stared at her screen and blinked twice. Something was wrong. The sensor readings made no sense at all. She ran the scan again, then a third time. The same result appeared each time. "Commander," she said, her voice steady despite her confusion. "There's an unidentified vessel at the border." Commander Kaylor walked over to her station. He was tall even for their species, with the silver markings of a career military officer. "Show me." Yuna pulled up the data on the main display. The entire bridge crew stopped their work to look. They saw a small ship moving slowly through space. It was heading directly toward their territory. "That's impossible," Kaylor said. "Our sensors monitor everything within 50 light years. How did this vessel appear without warning?" "I don't know, sir," Yuna replied. She checked her instruments again. "The ship is small, maybe 20 or 30 crew members at most. It's not using any stealth technology that I can detect. It's just there." Kaylor's expression hardened. In 3,000 years of Valaric's history, no species had ever entered their space without permission. The Empire controlled 47 star systems. They were the most powerful civilization in this region of the galaxy. Everyone knew that. "Run it through the identification database," Kaylor ordered. Yuna's fingers moved quickly across her console. The computer compared the ship's design to every known vessel in Valaric's records. After a moment, the screen flashed red. "No match found, sir. This ship doesn't belong to any known species." A heavy silence filled the bridge. Unknown meant dangerous. Unknown meant unpredictable. Kaylor activated the fleet-wide communication system. "All ships, this is Admiral Kaylor. We have an unidentified vessel approaching Valaric space. Battle Formation 7. Prepare to intercept." Within minutes, 20 Valaric's warships changed course. They were massive vessels, each one capable of destroying a small moon. They moved into position around the unknown ship like predators surrounding prey. Yuna was transferred to the Admiral's flagship for the intercept mission. She sat at the communications station, preparing the standard first contact protocol. She had done this twice before with primitive species. Both times, the aliens had surrendered immediately when they saw the Valaric's fleet. As they approached the strange vessel, Yuna got a better look at it. The ship was indeed small, roughly the size of a Valaric's cargo transport. Its design was unusual but not primitive. The hull showed signs of long-distance travel. Whoever they were, they had come from far away. "Open a channel," Kaylor commanded. Yuna activated the communication array. She took a breath and began the speech she had memorized years ago. "Unidentified vessel, you have entered Valaric's territory without authorization. Your ship is surrounded. You will power down your weapons and engines immediately. You will prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will result in your destruction. This is your only—" She stopped. The image on the screen showed the bridge of the alien ship. A figure sat in the captain's chair. He was smaller than a Valaric's, with strange smooth skin and short dark hair. He wore a simple blue uniform, and he was smiling. Smiling. Yuna had never seen a species smile when surrounded by superior firepower. She forgot her next words. The alien leaned forward in his chair. When he spoke, the translation matrix converted his language into Valaric's. His voice was warm and friendly. "Greetings. I am Captain Taeyang of the United Human Space Vessel Wanderer. We come in peace from the planet Earth. We mean no harm to you or your people. We're explorers seeking to make peaceful contact with other civilizations. We request permission to enter your space for scientific exchange and trade." Kaylor stared at the screen. His command crew exchanged confused glances. Yuna looked down at her console, unsure what to do next. The human captain waited patiently. Behind him, other humans moved around the bridge, performing their duties. They didn't look afraid. They looked curious. "You are surrounded by 20 warships," Kaylor finally said. "Each one could destroy your vessel in seconds. You should be afraid." Taeyang's smile didn't fade. "We detected your ships when we entered the system. Very impressive formation, by the way. But we're not here to fight. We're just travelers hoping to make new friends. We've been in space for 8 months looking for intelligent life. Finding you is exciting for us." "Friends?" Kaylor repeated the word as if he'd never heard it before. In Valaric's military context, there were only allies and enemies. Friends was something else entirely. "Yes, friends," Taeyang said. "We have much to learn from each other. Humanity has only recently developed faster than light travel. We're new to the galaxy. We want to meet others, share knowledge, and build connections." A junior officer leaned close to Kaylor, Sir, their weapons are not powered up. Their shields are at minimal strength. Either they're incredibly foolish or they really don't intend to fight. Kaylor thought for a long moment. This situation had no precedent in Valeric's history. The protocols were clear about how to handle hostile vessels. But peaceful contact? That wasn't something they had encountered before. Other species either attacked or surrendered. Captain Taiyang, Kaylor said slowly, you will accompany us to our capital world, Thesara Prime. You will answer our questions. You will submit to our examination. If you refuse, we will destroy your ship. Yuna expected the human to panic, to plead, to show some sign of fear. Instead, Taeyang nodded calmly. We accept your invitation. We're happy to answer your questions. Should we follow your lead ship, or would you prefer to guide us with a tractor beam? You'll follow, Kaylor said. Any deviation from the prescribed course will be considered hostile action. Understood, Admiral, Taeyang said. We'll stay right behind you. Oh, and Admiral? Thank you for not shooting first. Some of our scientists theorized that first contact might be violent. I'm glad they were wrong. The communication ended. Kaylor stood motionless, processing what had just happened. His crew waited for orders. Maintain formation, he finally said. Take them to Thesara Prime, and someone get me everything we can scan about that ship. I want to know who these humans are and where they came from. Yuna watched the human vessel on her screen as it fell into formation with the Valeric's fleet. She had paused mid-sentence during her first contact speech. She had never done that before. Something about the human captain's smile had disrupted her training. It was genuine, unafraid, almost happy. As the fleet began its journey to the capital, Yuna couldn't stop thinking about that smile. In her entire life, she had learned that strength meant domination. Power meant control. The Valerics were strong because they were superior to everyone else. But these humans, surrounded by overwhelming force, didn't act like inferiors. They acted like equals. That shouldn't be possible. Yet somehow it was. The Wanderer sat in a docking bay on Thesara Prime, surrounded by guards and scanning equipment. Scientists and military personnel swarmed around it like insects around a light. Everyone wanted to understand these strange visitors. Yuna stood in the observation room watching the humans disembark from their ship. There were 20 of them, just as the scans had predicted. They wore matching blue uniforms and carried no weapons. They looked around the docking bay with open interest, pointing at things and talking to each other. They're not afraid, Yuna said to herself. That's what worries me, replied Nari, the chief scientist who had just entered the room. She was old by Valeric standards, with experience spanning 4 decades. Fear is a survival instinct. Creatures without fear don't live long. Captain Taiyang and his senior crew were taken to a meeting room. The rest of the humans were escorted to quarters that were comfortable but monitored. Yuna was assigned to observe them, to learn their behavior and report anything unusual. In the main interrogation room, Nari began her examination. She sat across from Taeyang and 2 of his crew members. One was a woman named Hana, who introduced herself as the chief engineer. The other was Junho, who said he was a xenobiologist and cultural specialist. Tell us about Earth, Nari said. Where is it located? Taeyang activated a small device that projected a star map. We come from this region, he said, pointing to an area the Valerics had never explored. It's about 800 light-years from here. Our planet orbits a yellow dwarf star we call Sol. Nari examined the map. That region was considered unimportant by Valeric's explorers. It was too far from their core territories. How long ago did your species achieve space travel? We reached our moon about 100 years ago, Taeyang said. Faster than light travel came 50 years ago. We've had peaceful world government for 30 years now. Nari's expression showed disbelief. That's impossible. Species require thousands of years to develop such technology. The Valerics needed 3,000 years to reach our current level. You claim humanity did it in 100? Yunho spoke up. His voice was gentle and educational. Our development was rapid because we faced constant challenges. Earth is what you might call a difficult world. We had to adapt quickly to survive. Over the next several hours, Nari conducted tests. She scanned the humans, analyzed their biology, and reviewed the data multiple times. Each result made her more confused and concerned. She called Admiral Kaylor to her laboratory. You need to see this, she said. Kaylor arrived with several military advisors. Yuna came too as the junior officer assigned to the human contact team. They gathered around Nari's displays. "I've analyzed the human crew," Nari began. "The results are disturbing. First, their homeworld. They call it Earth, but it should be classified as a death world. The gravity is 30% stronger than our optimal range. The atmosphere contains 21% oxygen, which is toxic at high levels. The temperature swings from extreme cold to extreme heat. The planet has violent storms, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and deadly predators." Kalor frowned.
How did they evolve intelligence in such conditions?
"Because of those conditions," Nari said. "Look at their biology. Humans have redundant organs. If one kidney fails, they have another. Their bones are incredibly dense to handle their planet's gravity. Their blood clots rapidly to prevent death from injuries. They heal faster than any species I've studied. And their endurance." She pulled up another chart. "A healthy human can run for hours without stopping. They can survive without food for weeks. Their bodies are built for constant stress." One of the military advisors leaned forward. "Are they a warrior species?" "Yes and no," Nari said. "Here's what troubles me most. According to their historical records, humanity achieved all their technology while fighting themselves. They had hundreds of separate nations, constantly at war. They developed nuclear weapons and almost destroyed themselves multiple times. They only unified their world 3 decades ago." The room fell silent. The Velarics had evolved on a peaceful garden world. They had unified early in their history and spread slowly across the stars. They couldn't imagine advancing while fighting themselves. "They're dangerous," one advisor said. "We should eliminate them before they become a threat." "Wait," Yuna said. Everyone turned to look at her. She rarely spoke in high-level meetings. "I've been observing the humans in their quarters. They're not acting like warriors. They're friendly, curious. One of them, Junho, has been teaching our younglings about Earth's animals. He's patient and kind with them." "That could be deception," the advisor said. "I don't think so," Yuna replied. "I've watched their interactions. They show genuine care for each other. When one is tired, others help. They share food. They laugh together. These don't seem like warriors preparing for battle." Kalor studied the data quietly. "What else did you find, Nari?" "Their technology," Nari said. "It's different from ours, but equally advanced in some ways. Their ship uses fusion power like we do, but their design is more efficient. When I asked Hana, their engineer, about it, she explained their approach. Then she noticed a problem with our power systems and offered to help fix it. She could be gathering intelligence," the advisor said. "She fixed a fusion reactor problem that our engineers have struggled with for 10 years, Nari said flatly. "In 3 hours. She did it while explaining every step so our people could learn. If this is espionage, it's the most generous espionage I've ever seen." Yuna had spent time with Hana too. The human woman was cheerful and loved to explain how things worked. She treated Velarix engineers as equals, not as inferiors or threats. She seemed genuinely excited to share knowledge. "There's one more thing," Nari said. "I asked them why they travel in such a small ship, so far from home. Taeyang said Earth sent out dozens of exploration vessels in different directions. Each ship is independent. Each carries all of humanity's knowledge. If something happens to Earth, these ships ensure humanity survives." "They scattered themselves across the galaxy?" Kalor asked. "Yes," Nari said. "They call it spreading seeds. Instead of building a massive fleet to conquer, they sent small groups to explore and make contact. It's a survival strategy born from a species that nearly destroyed itself and learned from the experience." Yuna felt something shift in her understanding. The Velarix expanded through strength and control. They conquered worlds and added them to the empire. They saw it as natural law. The strong ruled the weak, but humans expanded through dispersal and connection. They didn't assume they'd survive. They planned for failure and tried anyway. They reached out to strangers not from superiority, but from hope. That night, Yuna reviewed the recordings of human interactions. She watched Junho play a strange Earth game with Velarix children, teaching them through laughter. She watched Hyunwoo, their doctor, treat a Velarix guard who had injured his arm, refusing any payment. She watched the crew gather together each evening, sharing stories about their families back on Earth. They missed home. They were lonely, but they kept going anyway. The next morning, the Velarix Council met to decide humanity's fate. Some argued for imprisonment. Others wanted to study the humans indefinitely. A few suggested destroying them as a precaution. Admiral Kaylor stood before the council. "I propose a different approach," he said. "These humans claim to seek peaceful contact. I believe we should test that claim. Let them prove their intentions through the trial of equals." The council members stirred with interest. The trial of equals was an ancient tradition, rarely used. It tested worthiness through combat, strategy, and survival. "If they fail, we'll know they're weak and deal with them accordingly," Kaylor said. "If they succeed, perhaps they've earned the right to be treated as equals rather than curiosities or threats." The council agreed. The trial would begin in 3 days. When Yuna told Captain Taiyang about the decision, she expected him to be worried. Instead, he smiled that same strange smile from their first meeting. "A trial," he said. "Sure, we'll participate. It sounds like an honor. Thank you for the opportunity." Yuna left the meeting room shaking her head. She still didn't understand these humans. They faced every challenge with optimism. They didn't seem to understand when they should be afraid. Either they were fools, or they knew something the Valarics had forgotten. She suspected it was the latter. The arena was packed with spectators. Thousands of Valarics came to watch the trial of equals. News of the strange humans had spread across the Sara Prime. Everyone wanted to see if these aliens were as interesting as the reports suggested. Yuna sat in the observation area reserved for officials. She felt nervous, though she couldn't explain why. She barely knew these humans. Why should she care if they passed or failed? The first trial was single combat. A warrior from each species would fight until one surrendered, or could no longer continue. The Valaric's champion was Rathak, a decorated soldier who had won 43 consecutive matches. He stood in the center of the arena, his muscular frame impressive even by Valaric standards. The human fighter entered from the opposite side. Her name was Jisoo. She was smaller than Rathak by a significant margin. She wore light armor and carried a training staff just like the Valaric's warrior. As she walked to the center, she showed no fear. She looked calm, almost relaxed. The judge explained the rules. No lethal force. Fight until submission or incapacitation. Both fighters acknowledged. The match began. Rathak moved first, confident in his size advantage. He swung his staff in a powerful arc. Jisoo didn't try to block it. She ducked under the swing and moved sideways. Rathak adjusted quickly, attacking again. Again, Jisoo avoided the strike instead of meeting it head-on. "She's running away," someone in the crowd said. But Yuna noticed something different. Jisoo wasn't running. She was studying. Each time Rathak attacked, she learned his patterns. She was patient. Rathak grew frustrated. He increased his speed, pressing the attack with combinations that had defeated countless opponents. Jisoo continued to evade, occasionally striking back with quick jabs that didn't seem to do much damage. 20 minutes passed. 30. 40. Rathak was breathing hard now. The constant attacking was tiring him. Jisoo's breathing was controlled and steady. She had barely broken a sweat. Then Jisoo changed her approach. She stopped retreating and started attacking. Her strikes were precise, targeting joints and pressure points. She used Rathak's momentum against him, redirecting his power rather than meeting it directly. She moved in patterns he couldn't predict. The crowd grew quiet. They were watching something they'd never seen before. Rathak, the champion, was struggling against a smaller opponent. At the 50-minute mark, Rathak swung with all his remaining strength. Jisoo stepped inside his guard, swept his legs, and used his own staff to pin him to the ground. She applied just enough pressure to make it clear she could break his arm if she chose to. "Submit," she said quietly, so only Rathak could hear. "You fought well. There's no shame in it." Rathak tapped the ground twice, the signal of surrender. The arena erupted in confused noise. Some spectators cheered. Others protested. No one could quite believe what they had witnessed. Rathak had not been defeated in over 5 years. Now a human half his size had forced his submission. The judge declared the match a draw. Technically, Jisoo had won, but Valaric's tradition held that exceptional displays of skill by both fighters could be honored equally. It was a diplomatic solution, but everyone knew the truth. Admiral Kaylor stood in his viewing box. His expression was unreadable. The second trial began the next day. This was a strategy simulation. Each side commanded a virtual fleet in a battle scenario. Captain Taeyang and his pilot Minho faced a panel of 3 Valaric's military strategists. The scenario was simple. The human side controlled a small fleet defending a colony world. The Valeric side had overwhelming numbers attacking that world. It was designed to be unwinnable for the defenders. The point was to see how long the humans could last. The simulation began. The Valeric's fleet advanced in standard formation, confident in their numerical superiority. They had used these tactics successfully for centuries, but Taiyang didn't defend the colony directly. Instead, he split his small fleet into 3 groups. One group retreated, drawing part of the Valeric's fleet away from the main force. The second group attacked the Valeric supply line, forcing them to divert ships to protect their rear. The third group hid among asteroids near the colony. The Valeric's commanders were confused. This wasn't standard defensive strategy. They adapted, trying to corner each human group separately. Taiyang kept his forces mobile, never allowing a direct confrontation. He attacked weak points and retreated before the Valerics could respond in force. He used the terrain to his advantage, setting traps in asteroid fields and nebulas. He sent false signals to make his fleet seem larger than it was. Most surprisingly, he talked to the enemy commanders. He sent them messages offering surrender terms, asking about their families, commenting on their tactics. It wasn't standard military communication. It was psychological warfare, creating doubt and hesitation. After 2 simulated hours, the Valeric's fleet had lost 30% of its ships while destroying only 10% of the human fleet. The colony remained secure. The defensive objective was achieved. The Valeric's commanders sat in stunned silence. They had never encountered tactics like these. The humans fought without honor, without following proper formations. They were unpredictable and adaptive. We call it guerrilla warfare, Taiyang explained afterward. We learned it from our history. When you're outnumbered, you don't fight fair. You fight smart. You make the enemy's strength work against them. One Valeric's commander shook his head. These tactics are dishonest. They're survival, Minho replied. On Earth, we had to think this way. The strong didn't always win. The clever and persistent did. Yuna watched the Valeric's military officers argue among themselves. Some were angry about the unconventional tactics. Others were fascinated, realizing they had been fighting the same way for so long that they'd forgotten creativity. The third trial was survival. All 20 humans were transported to a moon with a hostile environment. Extreme temperatures, toxic atmosphere pockets, dangerous wildlife. They had minimal supplies and 3 days to survive. The Valerics expected the humans to struggle. Previous species tested this way had barely survived, spending all their energy just staying alive. The humans thrived. Within hours, they had established a base camp using debris from old Valeric's mining operations. Hana rigged a water filtration system from spare parts. Hyunwoo, the doctor, identified edible plants and treated minor injuries from the harsh environment. Junho studied the local wildlife and determined which animals were dangerous and which could be safely avoided. They worked as a perfect team. Each person had specific skills and they shared those skills freely. When one person was tired, others took over their tasks. They didn't compete with each other. They supported each other. On the second day, they did something unexpected. They helped local animals. A pack of 6-legged creatures was trapped by a rock slide. The humans spent 3 hours digging them out, even though it used precious energy and resources. Why did you do that? Yuna asked over the monitoring system. Those creatures are worthless. They don't help your survival. Hyunwoo looked up at the camera. They're alive. They were suffering. We could help, so we did. That's reason enough. By the third day, the humans had not only survived, but improved their situation. They had shelter, food, water, and even a small garden started with seeds from edible plants. They had mapped the local area and marked dangerous zones. If they had to stay longer, they clearly could. When the transport came to retrieve them, the humans actually seemed disappointed to leave. They had turned a hostile environment into a manageable home in just 72 hours. That evening, Admiral Kaylor called a meeting with his senior staff. Yuna was included as the junior observer who had spent the most time with the humans. Analysis, Kaylor said simply. They're unlike anything we've encountered, Nari reported. They don't have our strength or our advanced civilization, but they have adaptability we've never seen. They learn faster than any species on record. They cooperate instinctively, and they never give up. Are they a threat? Asked a military advisor. There was a long pause. Not the way we thought, Kaylor finally said. They're not going to attack us. They don't want conquest. But they challenge everything we believe about strength and superiority. That's a different kind of threat. Or an opportunity, Yuna heard herself say. Everyone looked at her. She felt her face flush but continued. What if we've been wrong? What if being the strongest doesn't mean we're the best? These humans survived on a death world by helping each other. They got to space by learning from their mistakes. They explore the galaxy not to conquer but to connect. Maybe we could learn from them. The room was quiet. No junior officer had ever suggested the Valerics could learn from another species, but no one disagreed with her either. Admiral Kaylor stood. The humans have passed the trial of equals. Tomorrow we will formally recognize them as equals in the eyes of the Valerics Empire. Prepare the necessary documents. As the meeting ended, Yuna looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, the death world that produced these impossible humans. A world that should have destroyed them but instead forged them into something remarkable. She wanted to see it someday. The ceremony was scheduled for the next morning. The Valerics Council would officially recognize humanity as an equal species. It would be the first time in recorded history. Captain Taeyang and his crew prepared for the event with quiet dignity. Then the emergency alert sounded. Yuna rushed to the command center along with hundreds of other officers. Admiral Kaylor was already there, his face grim. The main display showed a star system at the edge of Valerics territory. What's happening? Yuna asked a fellow officer. Helios 7, he replied. The colony world. Something's wrong. On the screen, a Valerics administrator named Velnar appeared. He looked terrified. Admiral, we have a crisis. An asteroid was knocked off course by a rogue stellar mass. It's heading directly for Helios 7. Impact in 5 days. The asteroid is massive. If it hits, it will cause an extinction-level event. The command center erupted into controlled chaos. Officers began calculating trajectories and assembling response plans. Kaylor ordered the nearest fleet to Helios 7 immediately. What's the population? He asked. 12 million, Velnar said. Mostly civilians. Some industrial facilities. It's one of our newer colonies, Yuna felt cold. 12 million people. That was more than lived on some entire planets. Within an hour, the crisis team had their assessment. The head of evacuation planning delivered the news. We can move our transport fleet there in 3 days. That gives us 2 days to evacuate. Our calculations show we can save 7 million, maybe 8 million if we push the ships beyond safe capacity. That's only 60%, Kaylor said. Yes, sir. We don't have enough ships. We'll prioritize essential personnel, scientists, genetic diverse population samples. The standard protocol. Yuna had learned about it in training. When you couldn't save everyone, you saved those most valuable to the Empire's future. It was logical. It was practical. It had been policy for centuries. It meant 4 million people would die. Begin evacuation, Kaylor ordered. His voice was steady, but Yuna saw the weight in his eyes. Follow standard protocol. May the loss be remembered. The meeting ended. Officers dispersed to their duties. Yuna walked through the halls in a daze. 4 million people, children, families, artists, and teachers and farmers. All gone because the numbers didn't work. She found herself at the quarters where the humans were staying. She didn't plan to go there. Her feet just carried her. Captain Taeyang was in the common area with several crew members. They had heard about the crisis. The Valerics news networks were broadcasting constant updates. Yuna, Taeyang said when he saw her. We heard about Helios 7, we're so sorry. Is there anything we can do to help? No, Yuna said automatically. It's a Valerics matter. We have our procedures, but she sat down anyway. Hunyo brought her water. Hana offered her food, which she couldn't eat. How many can you save? Taeyang asked gently. 7 or 8 million, maybe 60%, and the others? They'll die. It's standard protocol when resources are limited. We save who we can. Taeyang was quiet for a moment. On Earth we had a saying, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. It's logical. But we also learned that logic isn't always the right answer. What else is there? Yuna asked. The numbers are the numbers. We can't change mathematics, no, Taeyang agreed. But sometimes you change the equation. He stood and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. His crew watched him, waiting. Yuna recognized the look they shared. They were thinking the same thing, the Wanderer, Hana said. We could use it. Use it for what? Yuna asked. Your ship is small. It can't carry millions of people. No, Taeyang said. But it wasn't built for carrying people. It was built for survival in extreme conditions. We have equipment on board that might help with the asteroid. Yuna stood up. You want to destroy it? That asteroid is 3 kilometers wide. Nothing we have can destroy it. Maybe not destroy, Hana said, but break it up. Change its trajectory. If we can fracture it into smaller pieces, they'll burn up in the atmosphere or miss the planet entirely. That's impossible, Yuna said. We've run simulations. It would require more explosive force than any ship carries. The asteroid is solid iron and rock. Taeyang smiled that familiar smile. Impossible is just a challenge waiting for the right solution. We have experimental mining charges on the Wanderer. They're designed to crack asteroids for mineral extraction. We've never used them on something this big, but the math might work. Might? Yuna repeated. You'd risk your lives on might? 12 million people, Junho said quietly. That's not a calculation. Those are lives. If there's even a small chance we can save them all instead of just some, we have to try. Yuna looked at their faces. They meant it. These humans who had only met the Valarics days ago were willing to risk everything for strangers. She took them to Admiral Kaelor. The Admiral listened to their proposal in his private office. Taeyang explained the technical details. Hana showed calculations on her portable device. The plan was desperate and risky. It had never been tested. It might not work, and if it failed, the Wanderer would be destroyed. Why would you do this? Kaelor asked. These aren't your people. You owe us nothing. In fact, we've treated you with suspicion since you arrived. Because it's the right thing to do, Taeyang said simply. We're explorers. We came to space to help and to learn. Right now you need help, so we offer it. No conditions. No payment, just because we can. Kaelor studied the human captain for a long moment. If this fails, you'll die. Your ship will be destroyed. Humanity's presence in this region will end. If we don't try, 4 million people die for certain, Taeyang replied. That's not acceptable to us. The Admiral made his decision. Do it. You'll have full support from our fleet. Whatever you need. The next 3 days were chaos. The Wanderer raced to Helios 7 at maximum speed. Hana and the Valarics engineers worked together to modify the mining charges for maximum effect. They calculated precisely where to place them on the asteroid to fracture it along natural fault lines. Minji, the human communications officer, coordinated with dozens of Valarics ships. They would use their tractor beams to push the asteroid fragments away from the planet. It required perfect timing. Every ship had to fire at exactly the right moment. Yuna was assigned to the Wanderer as a liaison officer. She watched the humans work with focused intensity. They didn't sleep much. They ate at their stations. But they never lost their determination. On the 5th day, they arrived at Helios 7. The asteroid filled their view screens, massive and menacing. On the planet below, 12 million Valarics watched the sky and hoped. The evacuation ships had taken 7 million so far. 5 million remained on the surface. They were out of time. The Wanderer approached the asteroid. Hana went outside in a spacesuit with Minho and 2 Valarics engineers. They placed the charges personally, checking each one twice. The asteroid's surface was rough and dangerous. One wrong move could be fatal. Back on the bridge, Taeyang coordinated with the Valarics fleet. 20 ships surrounded the asteroid, ready to use their tractor beams the moment the charges detonated. All charges placed, Hana reported. Ready for detonation. Wanderer to fleet, Taeyang said. Detonation in 30 seconds. All ships prepare for tractor beam deployment. Yuna watched the countdown on her screen. 20 seconds. 10 seconds. 5. The charges exploded simultaneously. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then cracks appeared across the asteroid's surface, spreading like a spiderweb. The massive rock began to break apart, fracturing into dozens of pieces. Now, Taeyang shouted. All ships engage tractor beams. 20 Valaric ships fired their beams at once, grabbing the asteroid fragments and pushing them away from Helios 7. The Wanderer added its own smaller beam to the effort. On Yuna's screen, she watched the projections update in real time. The fragments were changing course. Most would miss the planet entirely. A few smaller pieces would enter the atmosphere but burn up harmlessly. It's working, someone whispered. 5 minutes later, the confirmation came. Helios 7 was safe. All 12 million inhabitants would survive. The Wanderer's bridge erupted in celebration. The humans hugged each other, laughing and crying at the same time. Yuna found herself crying too, though she didn't quite know why. Captain Taeyang slumped in his chair, exhausted. "Good work, everyone," he said. "Let's go home." But there was a problem. The explosions had damaged the Wanderer. One engine was failing. The hull had microfractures. Hana assessed the damage and gave her report. "We can make it back to Thesara Prime," she said. "But it'll take longer than planned and we'll need major repairs." Taeyang nodded. "Worth it." As the Wanderer limped back toward the Valaric's capital with an escort of warships, Yuna stood at a viewport looking out at space. The humans were resting now. Exhausted but satisfied, they had saved everyone. Not 60%. Not the most valuable. Everyone. Because to humans, everyone mattered. That was the moment Yuna's entire worldview shattered and rebuilt itself into something new. News of the Helios 7 rescue spread across the Valaric's empire within hours. 12 million people saved by a single human ship. It was impossible, yet it had happened. The recordings played everywhere, showing the asteroid breaking apart. The fragments pushed safely away. Most importantly, they showed the humans risking everything for strangers. Yuna walked through the capital streets and heard people talking about the humans. The tone had changed. Before, there had been curiosity mixed with suspicion. Now there was something else: respect, gratitude, wonder. A shopkeeper stopped her. "You know the humans, yes? Tell them thank you. My sister lives on Helios 7. She's alive because of them." This happened again and again. People wanted to express gratitude to the aliens who had saved their families and friends. Some brought gifts to the Wanderer's docking bay. Flowers from their gardens, art from their children, food from their kitchens. The humans accepted everything with genuine appreciation. The Valaric's council met in emergency session. Yuna attended as a witness to everything that had happened. The chamber was full of the Empire's most powerful leaders and the atmosphere was tense. One counselor stood. "The humans have demonstrated capabilities we didn't predict. They saved millions of our citizens. But we must ask, what do they want in return?" Admiral Kaylor rose to respond. "I have spent these past weeks studying the humans carefully. I believe they want exactly what they said from the beginning. Contact, friendship, exchange of knowledge. They're not playing a complex game. They simply mean what they say." "That's difficult to believe," another counselor said. "Every species wants something: power, resources, territory. What do humans want?" "To not be alone in the universe," Kaylor said. "Their records show that for thousands of years, they believed they were the only intelligent life. When they finally developed space travel, their greatest hope was to find others, not to conquer them, to meet them." The head counselor, an ancient Valarix who had led for 50 years, spoke slowly. "I have read the reports. I have watched the recordings. I have consulted with our best analysts, and I have reached a conclusion that troubles me. The humans have exposed a fundamental flaw in our civilization." The chamber went silent. "We Valarix have measured ourselves by our strength." The head counselor continued. "By our technology, by our military power, by the number of worlds we control. We believed these metrics proved our superiority. But the humans showed us something different. They showed us compassion, sacrifice, cooperation across species. These are strengths we never measured because we never valued them." He paused, letting his words sink in. "The humans saved 12 million Valarix not because they had to, but because they could. They asked for nothing in return. They risked their only ship, their only presence in this region for people they barely knew. This is not weakness. This is a kind of strength we have forgotten." Another counselor spoke up. "Are you suggesting we change our entire civilization based on one interaction with one species?" "I'm suggesting we consider that 3,000 years of expansion through force may not be the only path," the head counselor replied. "I'm suggesting that we have much to learn, and I'm recommending that we not only accept humanity as equals, but that we seek to understand their perspective and allow it to influence our own." The debate lasted hours. Some counselors resisted change. Others embraced it eagerly. But slowly a consensus emerged. The Valarix Empire would begin a new chapter in its history. When the vote was called, the decision was unanimous. The Valarix would establish formal diplomatic relations with Earth. They would assist in repairing the Wanderer. And they would send their own ship to Earth to begin cultural and scientific exchange. Yuna was called to the head counselor's private office after the session. She entered nervously, unsure why she had been summoned. "Sit," the old counselor said kindly. "You have been the primary Valerix observer of the humans. You have spent more time with them than anyone else. I have read all your reports. I hope they were adequate," Una said. "They were honest. That's more valuable than adequate." He studied her carefully. "I'm offering you a position. We need an ambassador to Earth. Someone who understands both our people and theirs. Someone who can bridge our cultures. I believe you are that person." Una stared at him. "Me? But I'm just a junior communications officer. There are people far more qualified. Qualification isn't just about rank or experience," the counselor interrupted. "It's about perspective. You were willing to question everything we taught you when the evidence contradicted it. You saw the humans as people, not as threats or curiosities. That's the mindset we need for this new era. I would be honored," Una said. "The Wanderer will return to Earth once repairs are complete," the counselor said. "You will go with them. You'll live among humans. Learn their ways. Help them understand us. It will be difficult. You'll be far from home. But I believe it's the most important task in the Empire right now." Over the next weeks, the Wanderer underwent extensive repairs. Valarix engineers worked alongside Hana and her crew. What started as a repair job became a collaboration. The engineers learned human design philosophy. Hana learned Valarix techniques. Both sides improved their knowledge. Una spent her time preparing for the journey to Earth. She studied human languages and culture. She met with each crew member, learning their stories. Yunyo taught her about Earth's diverse ecosystems. Minhyo showed her recordings of Earth's cities and natural wonders. Hyunwoo explained human medicine and biology in ways she could understand. But most of her time was spent with Captain Taeyang. They often sat together in the observation deck looking at the stars. "Are you nervous?" Taeyang asked one evening. "About coming to Earth?" "Terrified," Yuna admitted. "Everything will be different. The gravity, the atmosphere, the people. I don't know if I'll fit in." "You will," Taeyang said with certainty. "Humans are good at accepting differences. We've had to be. Our own species is incredibly diverse, different cultures, languages, beliefs. We spent thousands of years fighting over those differences. Eventually we learned that diversity makes us stronger, not weaker. I hope the Valarix can learn that too," Yuna said. "You already started learning it," Taeyang replied. "You looked at us and saw people, not threats. That's where change begins. With one person choosing to see differently." The day of departure arrived. The Wanderer sat in its docking bay, fully repaired and upgraded with some Valarix technology. A crowd gathered to see them off. It was unprecedented. Usually alien vessels left with minimal ceremony, but these humans had earned something special. Admiral Kaelor gave a speech. "The Wanderer came to us as strangers. They leave as friends. They showed us that strength without compassion is hollow, that technology without wisdom is meaningless, that power without purpose is wasted. We are grateful for what they have taught us. We look forward to the future we will build together." The human crew stood at attention, honored by the recognition. Yuna stood with them wearing a Valarix diplomatic uniform. She would be the bridge between their worlds. As they boarded the ship, hundreds of Valarix children waved goodbye. Yunyo had taught many of them during their stay. They had made connections that would last a lifetime. The Wanderer launched smoothly, escorted by a Valarix diplomatic vessel that would travel parallel to them on the journey to Earth. That ship carried Valarix scientists, diplomats, and cultural specialists. Two species traveling together toward a new future. On the bridge, Yuna took her position at the communication station. It felt right. She was where she was supposed to be. "Course set for Earth," Minho reported. 800 light years. Estimated travel time 6 months. "Make it so," Taeyang said with a smile. As the ship accelerated to faster than light speed, Yuna watched the Sarah Prime fade into the distance. She was leaving everything she had known. Her home, her people, her old understanding of the universe. But she was moving toward something more important. A new perspective. A new way of thinking. A new possibility. Behind them, the Valarix Empire was changing. The Council had begun reviewing their tributary systems. They were reaching out to species they had once subjugated, offering partnership instead of dominance. It would take time. There would be resistance. But the change had begun. All because one small human ship had arrived unannounced at their border. All because a captain had smiled instead of showing fear. all because a crew had chosen compassion over calculation. Junio came to sit beside Yuna at her station. Nervous about meeting more humans? Very, Yuna admitted. You're also intense, so emotional, so unpredictable. Junho laughed. That's fair. We are all those things. But we're also welcoming. Earth will embrace you. You'll see. Will I like it there? Earth, I mean. Your death world. Probably not at first, Junho said honestly. The gravity will feel heavy. The air will seem thick. Everything will be too bright and too loud and too much. But you'll adapt. Humans always say that Earth is hard to live on but harder to leave. Once it gets into your heart, it stays there. Yuna thought about that. A world that was difficult but beloved. People who were challenging but loyal. A species that had nearly destroyed itself, but chose to reach for the stars instead. She thought about the smile on Taeyang's face when surrounded by warships. The patience Jisoo showed to Rathak after defeating him. The way Hana worked through exhaustion to save people she'd never met. The genuine joy Junho showed when teaching children about Earth's animals. These humans were impossible. They defied logic. They rejected simple categorization, and somehow that made them perfect. 6 months from now, she would step onto Earth's surface. She would feel its heavy gravity. She would breathe its oxygen-rich air. She would meet billions of humans, each one unique and surprising. She couldn't wait. As the Wanderer traveled through the darkness between stars, carrying its crew of humans and one Valarix toward an uncertain future, Yuna made a decision. She would write a book about this experience. She would document everything she learned about humanity. She would share it with her people so they could understand. The title came to her immediately, The Day the Galaxy Changed. Because that's what had happened. One small ship, one optimistic crew, one moment of choosing compassion over fear. The galaxy was still vast and dangerous. There were still threats and mysteries. But now there was also hope. The Valarix had found something they didn't know they were missing. Not subjects or servants or resources, friends. And that made all the difference.